Welcome to the 20th DEM I Wonder webinar. DEM has so many services, offerings, programs, and hidden gems that we want to share with all of you. So we're excited to take just a few minutes each week to highlight these features in our weekly webinar. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, many exercises have been postponed or canceled. The Utah Division of Emergency Management is hosting this weekly webinar series aimed at providing local emergency managers with relevant content and opportunities to enhance their capabilities. Webinars are live for Q&A and are recorded for later viewing on the DEM website and YouTube channel. Most of these webinars are seminars or workshops with a hands-on portion, which will allow emergency managers to become oriented to a DEM process or test a DEM product. Our schedule today will be as follows. We'll start with our ground rules and etiquette. Next, we'll have a brief presentation by Sheila Curtis on I Wonder How to Request Air Assets. Following the presentation, there will be a hands-on portion where participants will be encouraged to test out the product or process that was presented. Following the hands-on portion of our program, the presenter will be available for a Q&A session. Following the Q&A, we will close with a short message about upcoming webinars. The ground rules today are fairly simple. Please mute your line while the presenter is presenting. If you have a question, you may type it in the group chat or unmute at the appropriate time to ask your question. This session is being recorded and will be available on our website for future viewing. We are also encouraging everyone to participate in our survey, and I will place that in the chat now. The link to the survey will also be shared. And with that, I want to thank you all for your attendance today, and we will turn the time over to Sheila Curtis.
All right, thanks. Looks like we have a small group here, so that's good. So please feel free to just reach out and ask questions. Basically, what this is just an overview of how to request air assets. It's kind of geared for the locals, the city, county, but it's always good for everybody to know the process so you can relay that information down to others that may ask. So basically, the Division of Emergency Management, the CEOC, the Operations Center is where their requests come in. If you don't know, and if you don't know, then I'm really scared that we're located at the state capitol. We did not go to the Taylorsville office. Operations and Logistics stayed there at the Capitol and the EOC. And kind of background, and I know you guys know this, but we'll just go over the slide. We coordinate state agencies, so we help Joaquin with his stuff, get back to normal and all that good stuff. And we work with the LNOs, so Scott, Kimberly, and they work with their city counties to get that information up to the state. We also have a 24-hour staff duty officer that is on call. So if you ever need information or a request or anything, you just call our 3400 number. And there's a couple of buttons you push and it goes to the staff duty officer. So whoever's on call that night or week or whatever, or you're welcome to call me as it eventually routes back. So one of the resources that we coordinate is the air assets for search and rescue. So we have SAR, we didn't spell it out, sorry, I think it's on the next slide. But SAR stands for search and rescue. So here's some different capabilities. We always ask, if the locals have called DPS, so the helicopter there, what they have there. So right now they have 2 helicopters. I know they're trying to get a 3rd, but right now it's just 2. So some of their capability is FLIR, which is, I am not totally sure what it stands for, but it's like night vision. And you can see like the infrared stuff. So it helps with that. And then they do have the night vision goggles that they can see. So if they're flying at night and they're trying to locate an individual or individuals, then that helps the tank you walk in. infrared, forward-looking infrared. So that's what FLIR stands for. So it helps pick up the body heat and the body temperature so they can find them easier. They also have moving mapping system one with a hoist capabilities. So if they need to lift somebody off of a cliff, then they get that hoist. They have people trained, so they hook up, go down, assess them, and then hook them and bring them back up if that's what's needed. Or they arrange for the search and rescue personnel to take them down the hill. The ELT, or it's a personal beacon, so they have that capability that if there's a personal beacon going off, that those people. A lot of times we get calls that personal beacons are going off, and the county can request DPS to get that information out and find those. They have a trained and capable crew that helps provide search and rescue and or law enforcement support. So if you see videos, on KSL or different news stations with the DPS flying and they've, hoisted somebody up, or they're up in the air with their big spotlight helping law enforcement, get the bad guys and see where the car went, and they track them. So they have those capabilities. So it's not just search and rescue, it's to help law enforcement also. They're available 24 hours a day, 365 days a week. They have, I believe there's 3 pilots that are totally on call for those. They switch days off. They can usually be there within 45 minutes to an hour, depending on, where they're at and the circumstances. And I have been told starting in July that they will have a pilot and crew right at the hangar. So their response time will be 15 minutes because they'll have staffing there. So that's good news and that's exciting. Also, they have a Cessna 206 airplane that's available for wide search areas or to transport personnel. When COVID first started, when we were doing the Princess Cruises and trying to get Utah personnel back, we used one of those airplanes to pick up some of the cruise ship members in California. I believe that's the governor's airplane, so that was kind of cool. And here's kind of some pictures of what they've done, kind of what their helicopter looks like. I'm sure a lot of you have seen during the Governor's Public Safety Summit, they'll have it out there and they'll do demonstrations or hoists. Or if you've been down to Fish Lake when they do the search and rescue conference, they usually bring it down there and show it off. So it's pretty awesome. All right, next, Civil Air Patrol. So they're a great asset for the state of Utah. They are free. Oh, also DPS helicopter is free also. So if you request them, they're free to come and help you out, and also Civil Air Patrol too. So their aircraft, some of theirs, they have 9 of the Cessna aircrafts. They have VHF FM radios. They also have the personal beacons, the ELT, directional finding. So if there is a beacon going off, whether it's a personal beacon or an aircraft beacon, that they have that capability to find that. They have VHF repeaters, and they have sat phones. And I know they've got a good communication van that they can also stage on the ground. If you need like a dispatch to talk to air to ground, then they also help with that. So they're good for high searches where the helicopter can go in, into tight spaces and in and out, where the Civil Air Patrol can do high searches, if there's maybe a downed aircraft, they can do grid searches, and it's really awesome for them to do those things. They also have high wing, again, for visual searches, and they can usually be in the air within 2 hours of notification. And that depends on where the pilots are and where it is the search is requested. We've had, down in Graham County, up in Cache County, different areas. So it depends on where their planes are located and where their pilots, but usually within 2 hours that they can respond. And here's kind of some pictures that they have given us. It's kind of cool with the sunset in the background. And they have a lot of rotary, I think it's called rotary. Oh, I don't know what it's not, that's not what it is. It's the younger crowd, so like 16 to 18 kids that help. They don't actually help with the search, but they do a lot of the ground stuff. So they got a lot of good assets there. Sounds kind of cool with Mount Rushmore in the back too. And then we also have the National Guard assets. They have a LUH-72, which is the Lakota, and it's capable of carrying up to 3 passengers and different equipment, maximum 600 pounds. And they also have hoist capability. They also have the FLIR, the forward-looking infrared. They do have the night vision goggles. They have video downlink. So if we need some video, if it's an earthquake or something and we need to assess that, then they have that capability and it can hook directly into the EOC. We just have to be very cautious on the video stuff. They have rules and regulations that they can't, video private citizens. So there's some stuff that we have to do. They have a lot of communication also, the different radios there, AM, FM, and they can also bridge to, they've done that in some of the searches with the local sheriff's offices that they've bridged because they don't have that communication. And they also have the UH-60L, which is their Black Hawk. That's the one that you hear a lot of that we use to fight the fires. Right now we have 2 dedicated for firefighting for this season, and they have buckets that are hooked onto the Black Hawks that they fight the fires. And that one is capable of carrying up to 11 passengers, along with different equipment. We need to go out and do some search and rescue, then they can do that. And also internal sling. They also have night visions, and they have the hoist capability. Usually when I call them out for search and rescue, it's the Black Hawk that goes out. I believe the Lakota is a little smaller and the Apache is smaller. So the Black Hawk is better because when they go out, they take a whole crew. Besides their flight crew, they also have a medical crew. So it takes a little bit more. So that's why they usually use the Black Hawk. And again, communications. And the Apache, which is a little bit smaller, and they have most of the other capabilities, the night vision, the FLIR, the video recording, communications, all that awesome stuff. So all requests for Utah National Guard needs to go through us, so the state EOC. So, a lot of times locals say, hey, I know my neighbor Joe is in the National Guard, I'm just going to call him. And you can't do that. I mean, you can call whoever you want, but they will again go through their JOC, which is their Joint Operations Center, and then they'll deploy that asset after they, make sure that it's okay by the state, and also the TAG has to approve that flight also. And here's kind of some pictures that they have. It's kind of cool. I'm sure you've seen them flying in different areas. I know out in my area in Eagle Mountain, they used to do touch and goes with the new pilots, and so you'd see them flying all over. Just kind of awesome. All right, so the DPS, kind of what to expect when requesting your helicopter for DPS. That does not need to go through the EOC. It can be placed directly. But if you do want to call us, we can make that notification for the helicopter. The only thing that they've requested is that the sheriff, your county sheriff, knows about the request. You don't have to go through the sheriff to request it, but they just make sure that they're aware of it. That's just kind of a deal that they've had. So you can call our 3400 number or me directly. Again, most of those requests will come to me, so we can make sure that they're forwarded correctly. And again, there's no cost for Civil Air Patrol. They're an awesome resource and they love to fly. During COVID, they've flown a couple of missions down to Four Corners to some of the tribes. They've flown some of the masks and the PPE and stuff. So they're always excited and willing to go. DPS again is no cost. Utah National Guard may or may not have a cost. They were doing it with their training dollars, so we were saying no, there's no cost. But their national headquarters, NGB, has come down and said no, we can't do that. That they have to charge. So we're still trying to work some of that out. So please don't let that stop you from calling us because we'll work it. I know if you're familiar with the search and rescue, that it can be taken out of the search and rescue funds. But just know that if you're requesting a Black Hawk with a hoist, it's about $5,000 an hour, which adds up really fast, especially if you don't know where this person is, located and they're having to help search. If you know where that person is and, it's just an extraction and quick, it's still maybe 2 to 4 hours. So just kind of be aware of that, but please don't let that stop you. If it's a life, this person's dying, we'll do all we can. They've even told us if, we'll bill, but we're not gonna, push it and we'll work it around if they have to do training dollars or whatever. So don't let that stop you from calling us. If all other resources are exhausted and National Guard is the only way to go, then, make sure to call us. All right, so some of the things that we request, if you know sea salt, which I hope most of you do, it's kind of the capability, it's the size, amount being requested, where is it going to go, is it a FEMA typing and the time it needs to be. It's kind of the old who, what, when, where, why. Make sure that when you call to request that asset, whether it's the EOC or DPS, they're going to ask you those questions. So make sure that you know ahead of time, where the asset's going to be, who's the point of contact. If they have an air boss, who is that going to be? If you have a frequency, a radio frequency, what is that, going to be? And those are the questions that I'm going to ask you. So just kind of be aware before you make that call to try and get that information so we don't have to play back and forth. And a lot of times, it's a life safety and those minutes matter. So just kind of think of that when you're doing that request. So this is kind of the flow of how things work. So search and rescue, the SAR calls the sheriff. The sheriff says, okay, the search and rescue says we need air assets. So the sheriff calls DPS helicopter first. And again, it doesn't have to be the sheriff, but the sheriff needs to know that whoever's making that call is calling DPS. And there's a phone number for them. I believe that phone goes with whoever pilot is on call. So you can just call that phone number. So we'll leave it up there. You can write it down. A lot of times they'll notify us if it's, just a simple search and rescue. It's no big deal. They won't. If it looks like it may go into something else, that CAP may be involved or National Guard, then they'll just shoot me a text and give me a heads up. If it's a law enforcement thing, then they don't let us know. It's just search and rescue. So if the DPS Air Bureau asset, so the DPS is available, thank you, Tracy, for posting that, then they do that mission. It's done, nothing else. If they need more assets, then they call the EOC, or if they can't do it, then they'll call us. A lot of times the helicopter has been out on a search or, on a law enforcement issue, and the other helicopter is down or they don't have another pilot for the helicopter, then they'll call us. But they'll let us know that communication goes both ways. So if the helicopter can't be, if DPS can't request it, then depending on what the situation is, we'll either call Civil Air Patrol or we'll call Utah National Guard, or depending on what it is, it may be both. And then once the mission is complete, there it is, it's closed. A lot of times we won't open an incident in WebEOC if it's just a one-time search, but we do record it in our daily operations. And we also issue a mission for Civil Air Patrol or Utah National Guard. We don't issue a mission for DPS because that's just what they do. They're outside of it. But we do for CAP and Utah National Guard, and then they'll work the mission and go from there. Any questions on the flow there? All right. So from there, I believe, are we at the questions? Yes. Okay. So in your chat, since we don't really have any software that you're going to play with or do anything, I want you to, think of maybe a situation that you come across or that you might come across that you need an air asset. So let's assume that DPS helicopter is not available, so you're going to request either the Civil Air Patrol or, thank you, Tracy, or National Guard. So in your chat, and think about the sea salt, so the capability, what is it you're requesting, the size, how many, where's the location going to be, where's it going to be deployed to, is it a FEMA typing you're asking for, and what's the time frame that you need that? So we'll take just a minute. So in your chat, give me, ask me something. So let's see, there's a question. Tracy, are you going to read these questions or do you want me to?
Either way, go ahead if you'd like.
Sure, let me go in there. All right, so Scott asked, does Civil Air Patrol fly night missions? Usually not, even though they do have night vision. If it's doing a grid search, it's harder for them to see. Good question. Excellent, Joaquin. Definitely damage assessment. During some of the burn scars, we've had the National Guard do flyover, and they've taken some of the county sheriffs and different people to survey the burn scars. We've also used some of our mitigation folks to the bear team to kind of look at the different, where they think if there's going to be a debris flow. And I know for Mark up in Fox Elder, they did some of the flooding. So they took, I believe DPS did it, and I believe CAP also did it because they do have capability to video. So they flew some of that and then put it on a disc, and then they took it back to the county so they could survey it and work it from there. Lori said, yeah, if you're asking for a flyover, would you ask for a flare capability? That may be something I would ask for. UDOT also has a UAS, which is an X-24 vehicle. What is that? Is it an airplane or a?
No, that just means how many we have. They have 24. Each of the IMT drivers has I don't know how big they are. They each one has a UAS, and then there's another one. There's a big one called the Matisse, and that has the forward-looking infrared on it. It's really big. It's like a $30,000 platform that can fly nighttime, but every IMT member is a certified FAA pilot for UAS.
And those are drones, correct?
Yeah, little drones with cameras.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I know. And State Fire Marshal's office also has a lot of drones too that they've flown, which is awesome. Let's see, Scott, you had a question? You had your hand up.
No, I don't think so. I just wanted to be sure that UASs are really just drones.
Right. Awesome. Okay. Mark says, yep, we did use DPS and CAP in our 217 flooding. It worked great. I'm glad that worked. I know they put it on some discs, and I believe we even got a copy of those so we could kind of assess it and help mitigation too. Question for you, Joaquin. How does a request for a UAS? Do they just call? How do they?
I think it would still go through you, Sheila. So that informally, anybody can call us and let us know what to do to spin it up. But I think we would want that approval from the state, especially if it was a big incident or a situation. We'd want to get approval from ops to do that.
I agree. And plus, that way we know that that asset is out there. I know our state fire marshal's office, Art, when they go out, even just take one of their small drones for a semi spill, which is nothing. He'll always let me know that they're out there flying it, or he'll even say, "Hey, we've got these that we can help." So then we know. Then if something happens, that one of that asset is over there. So
And Sheila, a really important note as well is in order to fly these, even if it's just a training mission, each pilot has to file a flight plan. So that's one of the trainings they go through to be able to what do you call it, encroach on the airspace, even if it's class C or whatever. But there's a certain section of the valley that's class B, that's in a flight path of the airlines, and even though it's like a couple of 100 feet above it, you still have to file that flight plan. It's called a notice to airmen as well, a NOTAM, so everybody knows what's going on and there's no surprises. So it's a little bit more involved than just like, let's launch it. Those guys have to get clearance and file the plan formally to do it. But
right, excellent, yes. And Lori mentioned too, coordination with Air Ops. So in the EOC, we do have an Air Ops branch. We don't have them numbered like, ESF 1, 2, 3. It's just an Air Ops branch. So if the incident is large enough, we would activate them. And then they are coordinating all of those air assets and missions. And as Lori stated, a TFR is a temporary flight restriction. So kind of like Joaquin said too, if it's a big enough event, which in the earthquake, FAA, we have partners there, would issue that TFR, and actually our Air Ops could ask for that TFR. So it would be, over that incident or smaller, if the president or vice president comes in, there's definitely TFRs issued. So the aircraft can't fly in that. So excellent. Mark, let's see, your drone program, besides active flight and autonomous flight operations, we now have a tether system so we can put a stationary eye in the sky for many hours without having to land. That's awesome. You have all the cool toys up there, Mark. But that's good to know. And I'm assuming, Mark, and let me ask you, if another county jurisdiction would like to use that you would borrow it to them or come down and run it. Absolutely. He's being shy today. All right, so what's some other things that I might ask you if you called? If you had a search and rescue, you had, a downed, say you had a downed aircraft. What's some things that I might ask you? Am I hearing a microphone? Either type it in. Okay, awesome. That long. Yep. And most of your cell phones nowadays, you can, stand there and ping yourself or take a picture and it'll show the lat long. So if you don't know, you can, do that and send that off. Excellent. If you called up and said, "Hey, Sheila, I want a I want an Apache helicopter and I want it in 2 hours. What do you think I'm going to say? Joaquin's laughing. I would probably say why. Like anything that we always tell everybody, what's the situation? I'm not just going to automatically send it. I'm going to ask you what it is, why you need it. And then we may decide what the best asset is to send that. It may be Civil Air Patrol, not an Apache. So. All right, any other questions or comments? Sorry, I tickled my throat.
No problem. Do we have any other questions for Sheila about requesting air assets?
Don't be shy. No dumb questions.
Sheila, and I believe you already did mention this, but I'm going to just reiterate it because we had a few people join a little later. Can anyone call just someone from the National Guard to request that air asset, or is there a specific process for which particular person with the National Guard they can contact? Because maybe my neighbor is a pilot for the National Guard.
Right, good question. So no, sure, you can call your friend and neighbor in the National Guard, but they're going to tell you to call the state EOC. Hopefully they will. All requests for National Guard, because they are considered a state asset, have to be run through the EOC. So if you're requesting any type of guard asset, whether it's, some soldiers to fill sandbags, they also have sandbag machines. If it's to that, then they have to call the EOC. So any state asset, which the National Guard is, they have to call us to get that approval. And then we send it to them and they get their approvals.
And then for any of these assets, could like a mayor call, or the city councilman, or the public works director?
Yes. If they're calling DPS, again, they can call them direct. They don't have to call the EOC. But they have asked that the sheriff, the local sheriff, or it's a city or a county, knows that they're requesting that asset. But they've told me that anybody can call and request that. If they're requesting stuff from the EOC, if it's a mayor or a city council, I'm going to ask questions. Have you talked to your local emergency manager? But anybody can call and ask for that. Joanne says, can you clarify one thing? We are requesting state assets, DPS or Air Patrol. We don't have to request through our county EM, but we do have to let them know. That is correct. You guys all know ICS and how things work. We'd like to run things through the EM because they're, in charge of the incidents. But if it's a onesie twosie little thing, like a lost hiker, an injured hiker, more than likely that emergency manager is not going to be involved unless they're part of the sheriff's office or search and rescue. If it's a larger event, then yes, we hope you've gone through your emergency manager. And again, those are questions, as Tracy said, if a mayor called or a city council, we would probably ask them if they know who their emergency manager is, and have you, coordinated this information with them, or, who's your sheriff. It just kind of depends on what they're requesting. But, we try to keep everybody looped in. And if they haven't, called them, don't want to, whatever, we may reach back, just a text to Scott or Kimberly or whoever and say, hey, just a heads up, this asset's going your way. It's not a big deal, but, here's the request. So, good question.
And Sheila, I have one more question.
Sure.
Many of these assets you mentioned have 24/7 operations. So if we need to contact them and we're contacting DEM, is that something we can do 24/7?
Yes. Yes. So again, we have a staff duty officer that's on call 24/7. And I always have my phone with me unless I get excited and get to have a vacation. But most of the time we do have a backup. So we have different individuals that are on call 24/7. They take rotations. And then also operations, we take rotations. So 24/7 they can call. Also the guard, if a call comes through to me, I can call them anytime, day or night, and they have staff that can call pilots out. Same thing with Civil Air Patrol. And two, let me tell you, and I forgot to tell you this. So Civil Air Patrol is actually, what do you say, housed out of UDOT. So UDOT has an aeronautics division. So I call them, my contact there, who then calls the Civil Air Patrol out because their funds and everything are run through there. But that's just kind of in the background. So
All right, thank you. Are there any additional questions for Sheila? Well, thank you, Sheila, for your presentation today. As a reminder, this webinar and all other webinars in this series will be available on the DEM website at dem.utah.gov/exercises or now at dem.utah.gov/iwonder. Our webinar next week will be I Wonder what the relationship is between floodplain and emergency management. And this is by Angela Crowther and Jamie Huff with our state floodplain manager and risk map program manager. If you have any I Wonder topic suggestions, please reach out to tbodley@utah.gov to have your topic added to our calendar. We're always excited to help you explore and get to know all that DEM can offer the emergency management community. Again, I will place the survey that we have in the chat. We hope that you will take a minute to complete our survey. And with that, until next time, keep wondering.